Okay. Welcome everyone to the College of Legal Practices webinar, where we'll be talking all about our preparation course for SQE2. Our SQE2 preparation course is called Solicitors Legal Skills. My name's Alice Payne. I'm the Head of Business Development and Marketing at the college. And I'd like to introduce you to Catherine and Matthew. Matt, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for that, Alice. So my name's Matt. I'm part of the college's student services team. So support students pre-application right through the enrolment stage, and then supporting them throughout their studies, largely the non-academic side of the studies. Then also support the college with some other kind of outreach initiatives. So my role today, and if anyone's got any questions, are certainly around things on applications and how to apply and the criteria around that. I'll be covering that throughout the session, but yeah, feel free to direct any questions to me in the chat bar as well throughout today's webinar.
Thank you. And Catherine.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Alice. Yes, my name's Catherine Newton and I'm a programme leader here at the college. And I'm going to take you through these slides to tell you about our SQE preparation course, which Alice has said is called the Solicitors Legal Skills course. So I'll ask Alice to move us on to the first slide so that I can show you what we're going to cover in this session. And as Matt has said, please drop any queries in the chat bar as we go, and we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So we're going to talk about the SQE route to qualification and how the SQE2 fits within that. We'll talk about the SQE assessment itself. We'll then lead into our SQE preparation course, our Solicitors Legal Skills course. We'll show you a little bit about that preparation course, give you a brief demo. We'll talk to you about supervision and support and show you some of the members of our team. And we'll round off with how to apply for the course and then questions. So that's how we're going to structure today's session. And Alice will move us on to the next slide, please. So the SQE sits within the new route to solicitors qualification, and you'll know that the SQE, the solicitors qualifying exam, became live in September of last year, and that replaces the LPC course. And under this new route to qualification, there are 4 things that you'll need to qualify as a solicitor. You may be familiar with them, but we'll just run through them. You need to pass the SQE1 and SQE2 exams, and they are run by Kaplan on behalf of the SRA. You'll need a degree, any degree, that in order to enter into the route to qualification, and you can have experience that's equivalent to a degree. You'll need to complete 2 years full-time qualifying work experience, that's known as QWE, and you'll need to be of a suitable character in order to enter onto the role of solicitors. And what that looks like is a jigsaw. So we've represented that in the next slide. And you can see from this representation that the SRA put together, we borrowed this from the SRA. So you can see that you need your degree or equivalent, you need your SQE stages 1 and stage 2, you need your work experience and your suitable character. The important point about this is that it's not necessarily a linear path. So you can do SQE1 and SQE2 separately. They're separate assessments. Once you've started on that route to SQE examinations, you have up to 6 years to complete. So you must have completed your SQE2 within 6 years of having attempted your SQE1. You must pass your SQE1 before you take your SQE2. That's a requirement of the SRA. But within this framework, your qualifying work experience can be done at any time. So you need up to 2 years qualifying work experience, but it can be done at any time through this process. So that's very different to the LPC, where you had to follow the LPC in a linear way and then progress onto a training contract at the end of completing your LPC. This is much more flexible for you as a student. We'll move on now to look at the SQE itself, SQE2 itself. So the SQE2 follows the SQE1, and as I mentioned just a moment ago, you must have attempted and passed SQE1 before you can register with Kaplan and the SRA for SQE2. And the aim of SQE2 is to test the competency required by the SRA for entry into the role as a solicitor in both oral skills and written skills. And the SRA seek to assess you in 6 skills in 5 practice areas. And these practice areas come from SQE1. So the skills first. Here's a list of skills that you'll be studying for. Client interviewing and attendance note, and built into that is legal analysis, advocacy, and both of those are obviously the oral skills. Then you have 4 written skills: case and matter analysis, legal research, legal writing, and legal drafting. And each of those skills is assessed in the context of a practice area. And if you've done SQE1 or completed SQE1 assessments, you'll recognize these practice areas. So it's business, dispute resolution, property, criminal, and wills. So those 6 skills are assessed in the context of 5 practice areas. And it's important that we bear that in mind because that informs the way in which the SQE assessment is actually set out by the SRA. So we'll move to have a look at the next slide, and that sets that out in a little bit more detail. So it's a big assessment, the SQE2. You'll be doing 16 skill assessments. So each skill assessment is called a station. 12 of those are written stations, and that's a mixture of practice areas for those 12 written stations. And you undertake those at Pearson VUE test centres. They are both national and international, so you could sit your written element overseas. But your oral skills, there's 4 oral skills stations, and at the moment, sorry if we can go back, at the moment we are, sorry Alice, could you take us back? Yeah, at the moment there are only 3 oral stations. They are based at 3 oral centres. They are based at Cardiff, Manchester and London. And the first opportunity to do SQE assessments comes up in April of this year, April the 11th to the 13th. In which you will do the written assessments, and the 19th and to 22nd in which you'll do the oral assessment. The booking window for these with the SRA opens on the 25th of January. There is a later assessment date in this year. It's in October, but the exact dates haven't yet been released. And the SRA SQE examination fees are £2,422. So that's the national assessments, and we'll move now to look at our preparation course and how that prepares you to be ready to undertake those national 16 stations. So we're looking now at our admissions information for the SLS. And it's important to note that because the Solicitors Legal Skills course builds on the functioning knowledge of the SQE1, we're recommending that If you're applying for our SQE2 preparation course, our Solicitors Legal Skills course, really by the start of that course, which is the end of January, you need to have sat the SQE1 exam or completed an SQE1 preparation course in readiness to sit the exam at a later date this year, or have been granted exemptions from the SQE1 element by the SRA, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. You don't have to have your SQE1 results before applying, because those SQE1 results are coming out very late. They come out on the 20th of January, and I know some of you will be waiting for those as we speak. But the SRA does require you to have passed SQE1 before you can book and sit your SQE2 exam. So those are some housekeeping points for admissions onto our SLS programme. We'll now take a bit more of a detailed look at the course itself. And you can see here that you can join our preparatory course on a full-time basis or a part-time basis. And that really is about thinking about which will work best for you. If you've got plenty of time, the 10-week full-time course, which is the first course that we're starting at the end of January, would be suitable for you. If you have a lot of demands on your time, for example, perhaps domestically or with other work, then you may want to think about the part-time course, which is over 20 weeks. And roughly you'll be needing about 30 hours a week for the full-time course and about 15 hours a week for the part-time course. So it is quite time intensive for you. Our course is run virtually through our learning portal, and it's designed specifically for the learning portal. We cover all the skills, all the 6 skills across the practice areas. So we're skilling you up to be ready to attempt that national exam. And the way we do that is through a series of on-demand videos, activities, practice tasks, and simulated assessments. And I'll speak in a bit more detail about those in a moment. At the end of the programme, you will do our module assessments, and the module assessments are SQE2 style. There's 6 of them, so 2 of them are oral assessments and 4 of them are written assessments. And we don't tell, like in the SRA, we don't tell you about the practice areas until you're approaching the actual exam, so it's 1 week prior. But you will be told about the practice areas. You will get a skills guide, a specific skills guide covering the generics points on the skills, and you'll get that in electronic copy via our learning portal, and also a hard copy so that you have that as a reference point while you're working on the electronic materials. The materials that are available in the learning portal are supported by surgeries, which will cover a recap of the legal knowledge areas, the practice areas, and town hall sessions, which will help you in your orientation through the course, and generic aspects of the course and generic tips on skills. In addition, you'll get individual supervisions and pastoral support via your personal tutor, and that's aimed at supporting your progress. And our course fees for all of that are £2,300. Just a note to self there, remember that that is in addition to the SQE Kaplan exam fees. And we'll move on now to look at how we actually approach each element of learning. So very much a methodical way of learning, where each skill in each context is taught in this 3-step methodology. So you start off with developing and refreshing your understanding. So developing your understanding of how to undertake the skill, and refreshing your understanding of the legal knowledge for the practice area in which that skill is being considered. That's through your skills guides and a demonstration of that on a video, and also access to your functioning legal knowledge text and recorded media. So that's our SQE1 preparatory course materials there. You then move on to practice your skill. You can practice your legal knowledge in terms of looking at MCQs, building your skill in terms of working on a specific activity to build your skill, which is directed within the learning portal, and then a self-practice where you practice the skill in accordance with instructions that we give to you, and we talk you through how to self-assess on that basis so that you're getting an idea of what level you're performing at. All of that then leads into your performance element, and that performance element is where you either submit a piece of written work which is marked by a supervisor, and then you meet your supervisor for feedback, or you perform an oral skill in front of a supervisor and you get feedback on your performance in that skill. And those are like, each performance is like a simulated assessment. So in addition to the module assessments that you're doing at the end of the unit, every week you're doing written skills performances and oral skills performances to build you up through the duration of the programme to be ready to do our module assessments and then the SQE assessments. So quite a lot to do, but as you can see, lots and lots of support throughout that. And that leads us to a slide on supervision and support, and that I'll talk you through how we actually provide that. So,
Catherine, there is a question actually, if I may, from Eloise. She's asked if you took SQE1 through a different provider, but wanted to take SQE2 prep with the college, would you have access to the same FLK modules in the same way?
Yes, we would get within the SLS module, we will give you access to the materials that you need from SLK.
Yeah, so it's not the whole module, I don't think, is it? But it's all the resources.
It's the relevant practice areas that you will need, not the whole module. That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's not a prerequisite to have done the SQE1 prep course with us. So yeah, thank you for that, Eloise, and Alice, thanks for the tip there. So we're now moving into looking in a little bit more detail about supervision and support. So we're very conscious that the SQE2 assessments give equal weighting to both your legal knowledge in the practice area and your skill in the practice area. So we want you to be ready in terms of your legal knowledge, and therefore we focus our surgeries on the areas of practice in which you will be assessed in complement with the skills. We then have, so you'll have whole group sessions on that. We then have the town hall meetings for the whole group, where we'll focus on what's coming in the week ahead and deal with generic points, as I say, relevant to the course, and pick up any queries that anyone has. We then have these individual supervisions, which will be feedback meetings with your skills supervisor each week, and you'll also have monitoring supervisions and personal tutor supervisions, and they'll be interchangeable. So you've got lots of support on an individual basis from members of the team. Within the learning portal, we have student discussion forums where you can post your queries in advance of surgeries, so they can be picked up in surgeries, and also you can pick up any generic queries that you have, so that we can pick them up in town hall meetings. And then we've got Matt's team dealing with student service inquiries, so a whole package of support for you, so that you're supported in your progress through the module. And the feedback we had from our SLK, so that's our SQE1 prep course, which was designed with a similar package of support, was that the support worked really well for our students who were registered on and completed that programme. That's echoed in that quote at the bottom of this slide, which talks about the level of supervision and how useful the supervisions were. So we'll now move to have a look at our learning portal so that you get a sense of how it works. And I think Alice is going to show how we are designed for online learning and how interactive and easy to use it is, so that you can get a sense of what you would have access to. Alice, over to you. I think you're looking there. That's super. So what you can see on your screens now is the oral assessment or the oral unit of advocacy, and we're going to show you how this stepped approach maps into each of our units. So we're looking now at Canvas, which is our learning portal, and down the left hand side is the navigation pane in blue, and to the right of that is the in-course navigation pane. So it takes you through modules, assignments, discussions, grades, which is your own grades, and then the people registered on the course. So the focus here is going to be looking at the advocacy module, and it starts off, as you can see, with an introduction, and you can see under the heading of the introduction that you've got the introductory reading, the demonstration of the skill, the build activities, the practice, which you do as a self-practice, and then the practice and feedback sessions with the college supervisor. And each page shows you your learning objectives within this module and the outputs for the module. And if we move along, it will show you how this is structured. So the first step shows you the introductory reading, and you can see there that you have a link to the skills guide, which you can read, and then you move on to the demonstration of the skill, where there's a video which shows you how to conduct the skill. And what you would do here is click on play, and you would get a short demonstration of conducting the skill. So I know you won't be able to hear that, but you'll see how easy it is to navigate that. And then we move on from the demonstration, and your next step is to look at the builds. And you can see that you have build activity 1, and you get a set of instructions alongside a set of objectives, and those instructions are a walk through how to do the build activity. We ran a pilot on this, and the feedback from the pilot was that it was a really intuitive set of instructions and very easy to follow and complete. So you move from build activity 1 through to build activity 2, and then you will arrive at a self-practice by going through the icons. So build activity 2 is much the same as for the activity 1. And you can see here in a bit more detail, one of the activities here where you're building the skill is to do a drag and drop activity so that you can complete this text, which would show that you understand the process of advocacy in this context. And at the end of the activity, you would be able to check your answers against the accuracy of the accuracy of your answers against the model answer, and you can attempt that as many times as you like, so that you can keep returning to these build activities. Build activity 2 moves us into the self-practice. Again, a set of instructions. This time it's a timed activity because we're looking to skill you up for being able to complete assessments within a time window. And you would complete your submission, you would upload it, you would grade yourself according to assessment rubric, and you could then compare that with the feedback that you would get from your practice and feedback session with your supervisor. So if we go back up on this page and we move through to the practice and feedback session, these are part of the instructions for the self-assessment. That's the submission page. That's your submission rubric, which you get instructions on, and we talk you through how to use this in a town hall session. And then if we move along, to the practice and feedback activity, which is the final activity. Thanks, Alice. Again, you've got some rubric, you get instructions on what you're doing, and then you do your recording of your activity. Your activity is recorded. A supervisor is watching you when you're doing that activity, and then you would have immediate feedback with an individual meeting with the supervisor, who can talk to you about your performance in accordance with this rubric, that in that way you'll be able to gauge where you're at in terms of your legal knowledge for the skill, and where you're at in terms of your performance of the oral skill, in order that you can progress and reflect on your performance in readiness for the exams at the end of the programme. So the demonstration of this gives you a sense of it, but when you're actually using it yourself, it's quite quick. It's easy to use, very intuitive to use. Thank you, Alice, for taking us through that. We'll return to the slides, and when you're in Canvas, we have a very structured approach, which is set out on the Canvas calendar for you. So it's kind of akin to a timetable, and it keeps you on track for what you're supposed to be doing each day in each week as you progress through the course. So essentially, this is what it looks like day by day. On a Monday, you'll meet on an individual basis with supervisors to get feedback on the written skill submissions, which you'll have submitted on the Thursday prior. On Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays, you've got guided study time. In other words, it's set out on your calendar, and you'll be directed to work your way through those steps in the units, looking at 2 written skills in the first part of the course, moving up to 3 written skills thereafter, so that we cover the rotations, and 1 oral skill per week throughout. So you've got 3 days in the week where you are working independently, but with the guidance in the Canvas area, supported by that, by meetings on Tuesdays, with a town hall meeting, and with your engagement and personal tutor meetings on Tuesdays, so that you keep on track. On Fridays, you'll be doing your individual performance and getting feedback on your individual performance in those oral skills of client interviewing or on advocacy. And all of that pattern through Monday through Friday is getting you ready for the assessments. So you've got 20 written practice assessments, 4 oral practice assessments, and then your summative assessments, 4 written skill assessments and 2 oral skill assessments. And in that way, you should be ready for those assessments at the end of the programme and for SQE2. So I've mentioned the pilot a couple of times, and the next slide shows you what our students thought, those students who did the pilot. So you can see that they talked about the learning portal being user-friendly and intuitive. They really, moving across, they really liked the video demonstrations and sample notes so that they could understand how to approach the skill. They really like the practice and feedback sessions. So those are the meetings with the supervisors, because that gave a foundation for understanding what would be expected of them in the SQE exams. Back to the left-hand side of this slide, they really liked the range of activities and the fact that the builds and self-practice made it clear that it's a stepped approach, so that you are building and practicing your skill and being encouraged to critically assess your performance. So the built-in improvement if you follow the guidance that we're giving to you. In terms of the writing unit, they liked the opportunity to understand and apply the law in the scenario, and the ability to clearly understand and have explained what was required in order to meet the needs of different readers or different skills in different contexts. The supervision aspect is covered in the quote on the right-hand side. Pilot students really liking the rationale for grading being explained, so that everything felt fair and transparent, and the points for improvement explained to them in the individual feedback meetings. And they found real value in that because it was tailored to your individual performance, so that it would help you improve as you go towards those exams. Again, on the learning portal, the comment about the resources was that they were relevant and easy to understand, and those refresher chapters on legal knowledge were very straightforward. So that's the comments from our students, which is far more valuable than hearing from me on that. We'll now move to who the team are. We have the personal tutors and engagement supervisors are myself and my colleague Sarah, who's another programme leader. And then for the legal knowledge surgeries and for the skills feedback sessions, you'll have practitioner supervisors. So those practitioner supervisors will meet you on Mondays and Fridays, whereas Sarah and I will meet you on Tuesdays, both in our capacity as personal tutors and supervisors and at town hall meetings. And then the student services team are available to you through the student services email and the website, and that Matt, who's on the call with us today, and he's assisted by Amber and Bonnie, so they would be able to help you with any queries. Let's have a look at when our courses start. And those courses you can see here are both on the full-time basis and the part-time basis. So the start date and end dates are aimed at meeting the SQE assessment dates. So if we take it from the left-hand column, the first full-time course starts on the 24th of January. As I say, still plenty of time to apply. You would finish that on the 1st of April, and you would do your SQE2 assessments on the starting on the 11th of April. So our close date is the 17th of January, notionally, for that first course. You can then see that it's a later full-time course starting in July, getting you ready for the October SQE assessments. And then we, if you're thinking this far ahead, a January 2023 course for the April 2023 assessment. If you're looking to do it on a part-time basis, as I say, you'll need about 30 hours a week for the full-time and about 15 hours a week for the part-time. The part-time starts in May. The closing on the 9th of May, closing date 25th of April. You would finish the course on the 30th of September, and your SQE assessment would be in October. If you wanted to do it later in the year, then 7th of November is our start date for the April 2023 SQE2 assessments. And that concludes what I have to say in terms of the course structure. We'll come to questions in a moment. I'll now hand you over to Matt, who will just talk to you about the application process on the final slide before we open for questions.
Perfect, thanks, Catherine. Just talking about the kind of application deadline dates for SQE2, we know obviously that the SQE1 results won't be released until the 20th of Jan, so we're going to be as flexible and accommodating as possible regarding those dates that we receive applications. So I know it was covered earlier that students can apply to study with us prior to knowing the outcome. That's not a problem at all, and if people get the results that they're after, obviously the transition to the enrollment is fairly smooth. But if a student wasn't to get the result that they're after, we can always just defer that application enrollment. So instead of enrolling on this coming up course for the April assessment, we can just find another one from those dates which Catherine just discussed there and actually roll that assessment over. Or however, if we appreciate this will affect a lot of students might wait to apply once they've got their results, we can still make that happen if a student does want to apply after getting SQE1 assessment results on the 20th of January. So that's not a problem at all. So you don't need to worry too much about making a decision too soon if you're wary of waiting for a result outcome. But in terms of the application process itself, applications are currently open now, and they're all submitted through LawCab. So any student which has previously studied with us would have come through this route, and many other, not all, but many other providers of legal education have their kind of SQE preparation courses and other programs available on LawCab. So I imagine that might be familiar to quite a lot of students. But if not, yeah, LawCab, it's a little bit like UCAS is for undergraduate studies as well. So it allows you to include all your details possible and select which training provider or which educational institute you'd like to study with, and do multiple applications from one application portal. But yeah, as that third bullet point suggests there, include as much detail as you can, certainly around qualifications and employment, because that's going to be really important, because this goes back to what Catherine discussed earlier in the admissions criteria. If people's education history and qualifications are uploaded at this stage, it means when applications are submitted and make its way to us, we can review them as part of our admissions process and make offers quicker, rather than if a student was to not fill in all the right information or maybe leave some gaps. It then obviously opens up we'll still obviously reach out to the student, speak to them, and get what we need. But yeah, you can never put too much detail on applications. Really include qualifications, employment. So even if you've got any kind of voluntary roles within legal practice or anything like that, don't hesitate to include those in your application. We'd always recommend reading our admissions guidance, which can be found on our website as well. So it's quite straightforward, and it's something which Catherine discussed earlier, but that's really important, just to make sure that you're kind of ticking boxes there. But again, you can reach out to myself and our team to discuss anything like that with us, because we appreciate students come from various backgrounds. Not all students have studied in the UK before, so there's little intricacies to a lot of applications, but you can always ask us those questions. And yeah, just that final bullet point: once an application's been received, it then makes its way to us. We're alerted on that, and then we begin the whole process of reviewing applications. We'll then start a dialogue with the student and just discussing if we need anything or what's next, and kind of get the ball rolling to make that enrolment happen and get you ready for the course start date. So this process to apply would be relevant if you were looking to apply for the upcoming course at the end of January, or the course later in the year, for example. So yeah, the application process and guidance is relevant for our upcoming SQE2 modules, or SQE1 modules, if anyone was wanting to study one of those. So yeah, if you've got any questions regarding the admissions or application process, please feel free to put those in the chat, and I'm sure between myself and Catherine and Alice that we'll be able to answer those for you this afternoon.
Thank you, Matt. So that really takes us to our slide, which just thanks you for attending, and leads us into the questions part of the session. And I can see that there's a few questions in the chat bar, so I'll respond to those. And then if anyone has any further questions, we can move into further questions. So Eloise, I think I've answered I'll take them in order. Your first question about access to the practice area resources from the legal knowledge element. So I'll move on to Marina's question, which is a very good one, and it enables me to talk about the flexibility of the course. So yeah, I talked through the course schedule and the idea of a Monday to Friday, and our courses do build in quite a lot of flexibility, so that in the Tuesday to Thursday, where you're doing self-study, we're suggesting Tuesday to Thursday, but you can do that at weekends if you prefer, or in the evenings of Tuesdays to Thursdays. So there's flexibility in that. However, what you will need to do is be able to carve out time on Mondays for a short meeting with supervisors. So you have 10-15 minutes with a supervisor for each written submission. So in the early parts of the course, you'll be doing two written submissions, and in the later part of the course, you'll be doing 3 written submissions. So you need to sort of be able to carve out 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there to meet with your supervisor on Mondays. And then on Fridays, it's not every Friday, but because you are performing in front of a supervisor, you'll need to be able to carve out an hour or so on the Friday for your slot, your practice of the oral skill, so that you can meet and perform in front of your supervisor. So that might mean an early lunch or an early finish or something like that. So it would be something to speak to your employers about, just so that you can talk to them about what you need and see if they can meet those requirements. So hopefully that helps, Irina. The question then sort of related to that from Eloise is about the structure for the part-time course. So our part-time course, the first iteration will start in May, on the 9th of May. And similarly to the full-time course, we will have a suggested structure, a guided structure for you. But again, there'll be flexibility within it as to when you actually use your self-study time around your other commitments. But again, we will have specific days when you'll meet with supervisors for feedback on written assessments, and days when you'll meet with supervisors for performance and feedback on your oral assessments, but it'll be elongated over 20 weeks rather than 10 weeks. So you'll have more time. So shorter time will be needed on each day when you'll need those times with supervisors. So I hope that answers your question, Eloise. I can't give you any more specifics just at the moment, but it will be elongated over the duration of the course. Catherine, like you've asked a question about the LPC, and that takes me back to the point about exemptions from SQE1. So it's part of that admissions, those admissions requirements. So if you've done the LPC, what that does is give you a springboard into doing the SQE2 plus qualifying work experience as an alternative to doing the training contract route at the end of your LPC. So it moves you off the LPC track for admission into the SQE route for admission. Yes, we'd want to see your completion. As Matt said, you've asked specifically, Catherine, if we'd want to see your grades. It's always useful to have information, full information from you. So long as you've completed the LPC, that gives you the necessary requirements. If you let us see the grades and you're concerned about any aspect of your LPC performance and you wanted to just ask, will you be okay on SQE2, giving us that information will just help us to answer any query of that nature. Does that help? Hope so. Matt, is there anything you'd want to add to that? I've strayed into your territory.
No, that's exactly right, Catherine. I guess ultimately, yeah, if you've completed the LPC, similar to if you just completed an undergraduate degree, the certificate kind of demonstrates the qualification and the completion of it. But quite often with, for your example there with the LPC, or if an undergraduate or any other qualification, if you have things like the transcripts and the breakdown of grades, again, it can't do any harm to attach that to applications as well, just so we've got all the details. But yeah, ultimately the certificate obviously justifies a completion that shows the grade and that you've passed. But yeah, any detail is great, because even if we don't need it, but at least we've got that should we need to ask any questions around it, or like Catherine said, if people have got high marks in some areas and low in others, it just allows for that discussion to take place as well between us and any prospective student. But yeah, I just wouldn't hesitate to include stuff in applications. It makes everyone's journey a little bit smoother, I think, and it keeps things kind of ticking over as well in the process.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So another question here from Kafilat. Do we recommend doing the SQE before starting the QWE, or the other way around? Well, this is back to that jigsaw really that the SRA put together. So the idea behind the SQE route to qualification is one of flexibility, and the QWE is a way that the SRA sees of you gaining experience in the skills ready for practice on admission to the role of solicitors. So what QWE does is expose you to those skills, and what SQE2 does is assess whether or not you're competent in those skills. So although you don't have to do QWE before SQE2, and certainly if you've been working in any kind of environment where there is provision of legal services, you'll have some exposure to those skills, then it's not necessary to do QWE before SQE2, but you might feel that you want to get some qualifying work experience to expose you to the skills before doing SQE2. The other point I'd just make in relation to that is that if you have been working in a legal services environment, you may have already had exposure to the skills so that you've already got QWE in the bank, so to speak. And what you'd have to do is get that signed off by a solicitor in order to have the SRA recognise that qualifying work experience that you've already been exposed to. In fact, that was one of the direct ideas that of the SRA in improving flexibility and accessibility to the profession, that if you've got QWE experience in the bank, so to speak, it passports you onto the SQE route. We've got a couple of SQE seminars coming up, so if you'd like to join one of those, you'd be welcome to. And we've also got some pieces on our website about QWE, which you could read, and that will give you a bit more background information about that. Does anyone have any further questions? Do pop your mics on if it's easier to chat rather than type. Okay, so it sounds very much, Kafilat, that you would be able to bank that experience. So it sounds like if I'm assuming you've done your LPC and therefore I think from what it sounds like you'll be able to get over the QWE hurdle, and then you'll just need to pass your SQE. I suspect in your particular experience, Kafilat, if my understanding's right, you wouldn't necessarily need to do any more QWE before starting the SQE2 preparatory course. What I would recommend is that you speak to somebody in your law firm about being willing to sign off your QWE, and do have a look at our articles that Alice has just posted a link to, and that will help you with that as well. You're welcome, Eloise. Any other questions? So you can see Alice has posted a link to student services details where you can schedule an appointment with a member of the student support team for a chat about the programme if you'd like to, or your own personal circumstances if you'd like to do so. And hopefully that has helped you with your understanding of the SQE itself and the programme that we offer. And you're most welcome, Kafilat. I'm glad that's been useful to you. I'll just make a final plug while one or two people are still here, that if you did want to join your SQE2 preparatory course within studying for an LLM, you could do so, and the student support team would be very happy to talk to you about the LLM programme.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Matt. And I'll also just pop on this recording. I'll pop it on an email to everybody, so you will be able to refer back to it should you have any questions. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us. and hopefully we'll see you at some point this year on one of our courses soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye.